welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. I'm your host, Albert, and this is episode 357.
Albert, what is the right way to talk to giants?
You talk up to them.
Use big words.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah. I like it, Julius.
Either one would probably work.
Yeah, yours is way better, though. And that was fun. And today's game is about giants. It's a weird game, actually.
It's not a weird game. It's an amazing game. It is called Leviathan Wilds. And maybe it is a weird game.
Yeah. The theme is strange. You're climbing up these Leviathans to rescue them, and it just seems really unique. Leviathans,
well, if you've ever heard of the older video game Shadow of the Colossus, it's largely based on that video game. In Shadow of the Colossus, it is a video game where there are giant colossuses. Now, with that one, I guess you're trying to actually kill them because you're stabbing them with the sword and somehow harvesting some like darker stuff that comes out of them. Not very clear. But that is Shadow of the Colossus. This is the board game version of that. So if you have fond memories of that older video game, you'll enjoy this one. In Leviathan Wilds, it's a cooperative game where you are tiny little dudes on a big map book with giant leviathans that you are trying to climb up them. And there are these crystals that have infected them with this poison driving them mad. And your job is to climb your way over to the crystals, avoid the attacks of the maddened leviathans, break all the crystals. And if you manage to do so before all of your characters are exhausted, you win.
And you free the leviathan of its evil influences.
Theoretically, the game says you're freed of its evil influences. Sometimes that means that they get really mad and go crazy anyway. Sometimes that means that they go happy and just start being happy. And sometimes that means they go to sleep. There's a little card blurb for story for each of them.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, so then let's go jump into the stuff. You kind of gave a decent summary of the game.
That's generally my goal, to try to be decent.
How about the components then? You mentioned there's a flip book in there. That's exciting.
There is a flip book. It is a gorgeous flip book. There's a full art flip book, which is the map where you're going to be playing it on. The flip book has the graphic for, there's 17 double-sided pages of the Leviathans, and you'll lay that out, and that'll be the map that your characters are trying to do. So your guys are tiny little ones, and the book is a full book of these giant Leviathans. The map has a grid that your guys are going to be climbing across, with each node depicting a special type of effect that it has, whether it be that there's some helpful mushrooms going there, some crystals there that you need to break to win the game, or if there's some sort of dangerous terrain. But you'll climb over that giant map to be able to do that. There are crystals. The crystals are dice. The dice are not rolled. The dice are used to keep track of how much health each of the crystals have. I'll get back to those dice in a minute. But the dice are dice. There's purple and there's blue. The purple is just standard ones. The blue is blight ones, which deal you extra damage. There are cards for the threats. Each threat comes with a deck of 6 cards, usually. Some of them have exceptions. But there's 6 cards. And every round, the bad guy is going to be using one of those cards. And you'll deal them out in a row. He'll go through those cards. He'll do one of the attacks. So you'll see the same attack over and over again, but in a randomized order.
You said that the threats are per Leviathan. Is that right? The deck?
There's a giant deck of 17 sets of 6 cards or so each. So each Leviathan has its own threat that ties into the theme of what that Leviathan is doing and the level of difficulty or complexity of that Leviathan.
Got it. Okay.
So that, and I'll get back to that, but yeah, that makes each Leviathan feel very unique, but also makes it feel very consistent. So each of them has a different set of 6 cards, but it's only a 6-card deck. So kind of similar to bosses from a video game, you'll learn their moves and you'll be able to adjust and accommodate for them.
Yep. And using a small deck adds a little bit of replayability because each game will be different.
Yes. I mean, not really, because it'll keep running through every 6. So in 6 rounds, you'll see the entirety of the deck. So that's replayability is going to come from something else that I'll discuss later.
Okay, more components then. So you said there's dice. Lots of dice?
There is not lots of dice. There's some number of dice. It's not that many. It's 12 dice.
Enough.
They're not used for dice. They're used for counters, though. It's essentially
Right.
just a
Right.
take of dice. In terms of what player components have, the primary player component everyone has is going to be a board. Now, mine has all the deluxe stuff, so it's a 2-layer board that has slots at the bottom
Ooh.
for your health and your level of corruption. So as you're getting blight, you're going to be taking up the blue cube, and as you're lowering health, you're going to be taking down the red cube. If those two ever meet, then your guy is exhausted. That is a little track where it is there. It's easy to heal health. It is very difficult to heal blight. So blight is going to be one of your threats, your real timer on the game. Every
Mm-hmm.
player has a deck of cards, and I'll get back when I come to gameplay about how that deck of card is created, but every player is going to have a deck of cards, and so there's a whole pile of different cards for the different players. There are different meeples for the 8 different climbers, and there's a whole pile of different tokens that are used across all the different types of things. There's 8 different classes. There's 11, I think. Excuse me, there's 8 different climbers, 11 different classes. So you have a whole bunch of cards that can be used to do that, and a whole bunch of tokens that are used to track all the various different things. There's a couple scenario tokens that are just randomly mixed in there, but one of the cooler things is some mushrooms growing on these giant Leviathans, or these mushrooms, which are represented by mushroom tokens. You'll place 6 of them out of a pile of 16, 20, I think, one of those. And it's 16. So you'll place some of them out on a pile on the Leviathans, and you'll be able to go climb up and grab those mushrooms and consume them for all sorts of extra benefits, like being able to draw extra cards, avoid damage, things like that. The
Okay.
last component that I want to talk about is these attack markers. Now, I mentioned that there's these attacks that are going to be telegraphed by the threat cards that the Leviathans are going to have out. Generally, what happens is you reveal a threat card at the beginning of your turn, but the Leviathan isn't going to actually attack you till the end of your turn, so you have a bunch of time to react to it. In order to show where the Leviathan is attacking, there are these attack markers that you'll put on the board to show where it is that he's attacking, and then you got to get away from there before he actually strikes there at the end of your turn, or everyone else needs to get away from there at the end of your turn. Having now discussed all of the components, let me go back and actually discuss my thoughts on some of the components. You ready for this, Albert?
I am ready. Yes, I want to hear more actually, especially about say the board and the meeples, and I want to hear about your special upgrades.
So, in terms of the board is huge, and you are having to track from node to node. So, sometimes it's hard to immediately notice whether a crystal is on your node or not, if a die becomes a little bit dislodged or not. So, you kind of want to keep the dice sort of on the node. But the problem is then you have a bunch of things on the node. You want a mushroom token on the node. You want a die on the node. You
Mm-hmm.
want multiple climber figures on a node. And then if you have attack markers, you want an attack marker on the node. So things can get a little bit tight when you're doing those. I think the attack markers uh, make it even worse to a degree. The attack markers are these plastic circles that are, they kind of get in the way a little bit. You want to have them, you want them to be very visible. They're very dangerous if you want to avoid those attacks. So you want to be very aware to get away from them. But often the attacks don't only hit where the attack markers are. They can hit in a little S shape all around it, or they can hit one diagonal, two across. They can hit a straight line. They can hit a line all the way across. You have
It
to look at
depends.
the attack marker, consult back to the card, figure out where they're going to attack. So you anyway have to figure out where they're going to attack. And it's perhaps a point of danger, but it's less recognizable as an immediate point of danger than would be most helpful, and they just get in the way. If you have multiple
Mm-hmm.
people around, everyone's in a tight, compact area, it's just enough to bump someone or bump a die or bump a token that's on the next one over.
And
I,
it
I
just
don't know that
changed the
there's
game.
yeah, I don't know that there's a better way of doing it. You want it to be big and visible, but I certainly will
Yeah.
say it is a frustration involved in those attack markers, just keeping everything where it is that you want to be.
Mm. So to describe those markers, you said they're plastic. They sort of look like like a crown, kind of like a little 3D crown. It's basically
Yep.
like in a cartoon. If you do a punch, you see a starburst of bright red that comes out. That's what it is. It's that red starburst.
Yep. That is exactly what it is.
Is it big enough that a die will fit in and things like that in the center of it?
Yeah. It is big enough
Okay.
that a die and a meeple and a mushroom token will fit in it,
Oh,
but
wow.
you won't know the bigger problem is not the stuff that's in it right on the center of the node. The bigger problem, honestly, is the stuff on the nodes to the left, right, up, and down from it.
Right.
Because
Yes, they
it's
get
just a
crowded out.
little bit pushing over on those and just messes up those areas.
And some of the Leviathans have enough nodes and are crowded enough looking that it could be a problem. Like some of them, like there's a picture of here, one that's a tall, skinny monster, and he doesn't have that many spaces, honestly, and they're sort of spread apart anyway. They're pairs of rows
All
of
of
looks
them,
like
it's a
then.
standard amount of spaces between each node.
Yeah, but I'm saying there aren't that many nodes anyway in it. So and they're spread out. It's like he's tall and skinny, and his arms are wide, so there's space between the arms and the body. Then there's this giant turtle, and the whole giant turtle is just all nodes everywhere.
Well, no, it's all the same size and it's all the same grid. The grid size is
But no, they look
standard.
different. I'm looking at these two pictures, and one of
Well,
them,
I'm telling you, they're not. One
but
is
the
just
picture,
rotated. It's landscape versus portrait.
right? But he has way fewer nodes in the turtle.
No, he doesn't.
Really?
Really.
Wow. Okay, so that looks because the
I
turtle
mean,
looks like it's just a huge grid of
oh well.
20 by
Let me
10 or
let me
something. Where
actually clarify a bit what you're saying because you're looking. I understand what you're looking at. The turtle that you're looking at is the easiest Leviathan out there. He's the
mm-hmm.
level 1 starter one, so you just are climbing with him. The next one that you're looking at is the standing up dude. There's open
Yeah.
air nodes between climbable nodes. So you have to jump between the climbable nodes in order to be able to easily traverse him. But those open air
Uh,
nodes are just as important as the closed nodes because they're used for tracking where you're jumping, how it is that you're moving, triggering any of your action cards, things like that. The
I
grid
see.
is the
Okay, and so
same.
the picture
Go
I'm
ahead.
looking at, there's no nodes drawn in that open space. You have to just estimate how far it is.
No, all of them have nodes. I think that's just concept art.
Yeah, okay. That's my confusion. I'm looking at the rule
Oh,
book, not at
you're
a
looking at the
board
rulebook.
picture.
Zoom in closer. You'll see a lighter circle on the open airspaces. Those are the nodes that are open
Oh, yeah,
airspace.
yeah. Okay, you have to zoom in way far. Yeah, okay. Never mind. I take it all back. That is interesting. It's not at all obvious from the digital rulebook.
It is very obvious when you're looking at the physical one.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, everyone.
Take it from the person who's played the game a bunch.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the same node, it's the same grid, it's a standard grid space. And that marker is just enough just to push out into the adjacent spots. I just wish it were like a tiny little bit smaller. Frankly, I kind of wish it were a flat plastic piece as opposed to pointy sharp. That's just a little bit tinier. I'm not sure. I guess maybe I want to mess around with various other options. I deal with
Mm-hmm.
it. It's fine. It just doesn't get centered. I try not to let any of my persnicketiness about stuff being centered get in the way. We just play the game and have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a go. So tell me about the art of the book, the Leviathans.
The art is gorgeous. All of the art pieces are really nice. I did back this on Kickstarter, so I did watch some of the art streams where they were drawing certain things and sort of watching these things come to life. The art is really nice. I enjoy all of the pieces of the art. I've looked through it. I've seen all of the different types of terrains between the spiders or the wind beasts. Or you're looking at the turtle. There's these dark monsters, this giant swords. That's all the art is really good. There's a lot of art on all of the cards depicting all the different characters and all their different actions that are also really good. So the art is top tier.
Nice. And so each of the Leviathans looks really different. They look really unique and interesting. It's like not like stuff I'm familiar with anywhere else.
I'll get
And I want
back
to know
the
their story. Is there much story for them? I know you mentioned
Oh yes,
a
there's.
little bit.
I was going to get
Oh,
back to
okay.
that in gameplay, but sure. All of the Leviathans feel very unique. All of them feel very different within the system. Now we're not talking wildly unique. All of them have those 6 cards that make them operate differently. So some of them you have danger in that they alternate their attacks between columns and rows. Some of them are switching around gravity on you. Some of them are closing their eye and you have to go poke their eye every once in a while to make sure they don't do it. There's all sorts of different challenges that are being presented across the different Leviathans, and you, to a degree, have to figure out the best way of approaching all those things. So, yeah, they feel like very different things.
And that's from the threat deck that is causing these different challenges and
Correct.
things.
The threat deck and the makeup of the Leviathan, like the one that has unique ones, has alternating columns being labeled different things, and then the threat deck ties into that. But yes.
But how about flavor text? That's what I really want to know about.
All right, I'll tell you about the flavor text. So the idea of this one, as I mentioned, is that you are trying to free these guys. There are 2 extra cards in addition to the 6. There's an opening card for story, and there's a closing card for story. So when you read it for the first time, there's a card that describes that you're, out in the desert and you're trying to rescue this guy, and there was an issue with that. And then there's a closing card that discusses we managed to rescue him and he immediately went to sleep and he just looked the most exhausted. Or we managed to rescue him and he picked us up and gave us a hug. Or we managed to rescue him and he decided that he was really angry with the crystals, so he went and punched out the lights on another Leviathan. I'm making some of these up, but it
Right, but
gives
yeah,
you a
I like it.
card that describes the story of what happens now that you rescued them and how you return back to cheers and applause and things like that, whatever it is. A very short story. This is not a highly narrative game, but there's enough narrative tacked on there that if you enjoy the little bit of story in there, it's there and enjoyable.
And you said it fits on a couple cards, basically.
If it's on 1 card each.
Okay. All right. So that's all the components I want to know about. Unless there's more you want. Oh no, I want to know about your special upgrades.
There's a couple components I want to talk about. One is the dice. The dice are blue and purple, and I will say
Mm-hmm.
I have a fair number of colorblind friends. These are not colorblind friendly dice.
Oh.
For my colorblind friends, it is impossible to tell these 2 dice colors apart. They are addressing that in their 2nd edition of this. They're adding a different set of dice with different marbleizings so that you can be able to tell the difference of them. So if what I'm saying is interest to you, you are able to go and late pledge on that Game Found site on the pre-order for that. But for this one, it is an issue, and you're going to have to be aware of it if you're playing with colorblind people.
Mm-hmm.
There is a printout that you could do to mark down which ones are which for colorblind people, but just be aware of it, I guess, is where you have to
Yep.
come through on that
And
one.
if you don't want to wait for the game found to fulfill, you could go out and buy some dice, and just pick the ones to be the purple and pick the ones to be the green, and make sure they're
You
very different.
could. I don't know if it
Yeah.
would match, but yeah, that would be an option.
There's so
Where
many
they
dice out there. There's something that matches.
the issue you have is that you have to put the purple ones on the purple spaces and the blue ones on the
Yes,
blue spaces. So you
and
have
the
to come up
board
with
is
some sort of
different though.
key for yourself on the board, and yeah, it
Yeah.
gets messy fast.
Oh, okay. Big dice, little
um,
dice. Ooh, little dice would be good. 12 millimeter
they are
dice.
little dice.
Oh, they are okay.
They are little
Hmm.
dice. Last issue I want to talk about is with regard to some of the component upgrades. The game comes with cardboard tokens for all the different tokens and class abilities and things like that. Those are nice. Those are full art. They match exactly what's on the card and they look really nice. I got the deluxe one, and so that comes with wood versions of the climber and the class tokens. It also comes with an insert. The wood versions, in my opinion, are not as nice as the cardboard ones in terms of their art. Just because
Mm-hmm.
of some of the restrictions on wood, you can really have only one color when you're printing all these things. The
Right.
tokens have multicolored art, have full art. They look nice. Like the gadget token, I think is the one that's most noticeable to me. There's a gadget
And
token that you flip
stylistically,
over.
they probably match better. Yeah.
They do match better. I think once you're playing, it sort of just fades to the background. But the gadget token, for example, it's pure white on one side and pure red and blackish on the other side. And I don't know. The wood is nice, especially the wood focus tokens are nice because those ones only really need to be one, that's fine. But some of the other ones, the cardboard just looks nicer.
Mm-hmm.
They acknowledge the issue with one of them. There's a gambler coin that the wood token they weren't even happy of, and they're actually replacing that in the deluxe version of the next version they're doing. But I was not impressed with the wood tokens. I often say, "Hey, get the deluxe is really nice" and things like that, but I don't know that I really could say that this time around.
Okay. But you got an insert. The game didn't bring an insert otherwise.
The game does have an insert.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think you need the insert. Frankly, I'm probably not going to keep the insert once I get the expansion. Spoiler, I'm backing for the expansion. But I don't think I'm going to keep the insert. For tokens, it's a well. Throw all your tokens in a well. It's
Mm-hmm.
wells for the different decks, which could just as easily be deck boxes. It's slots for the red attack markers. It's slots for your scenario tokens and your mushroom tokens, and slots for your dice and your meeples. I mean, this is not an insert. This is not a game that the insert helps a whole lot in setup. So I don't know that I need the insert.
And that's really the biggest reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's not going to help a
All
lot
right.
in setup, so I just don't think the insert is that necessary for this one.
Okay. Well, so let's jump forward to gameplay now, or if you like theme, because we have talked a long time about the components, and they're really nice, and it's worth the time, definitely. But yeah, let's move along.
All right, moving into gameplay. So I've already focused, I feel like, on the gameplay of the Leviathans. They have their small decks. It's what makes them unique. Um, Before I get to that, there is part of the deluxe, or it can even be separate. There is a mini expansion type thing, mutations, where you can throw in a more difficult version or a more complex version of the different Leviathans, and that makes them even harder and even more customizable and even more different. Uh, it's cool. I've played with it once, so that I can mention that I played with it once, but really I haven't fully explored all of the depth of all of the different Leviathans to be able to really jump into that. But I'm happy that they're
Yeah,
there.
that's a huge amount of gameplay.
Yes. In terms of the gameplay for your guys, you have a climber and you have a class. The climbers have a unique ability. It's usually always on or something along those lines. And the class is the bulk of your deck. Your decks are not very big. Your decks are like 10 cards. It is shuffle building. So you'll pick a climber, you'll pick a class. Most of the climbers have like 1 or 2 cards. Most of the classes have like 8, 9, 10 cards. And you'll essentially shuffle those together. That deck of cards forms your grip. If you have cards in your deck, then you are holding on to the Leviathan. If you have no cards in your deck and your deck is empty, then your grip is empty and you are now falling. You are not able to hold on. And you will start falling until you hit a ledge and just drop. Now that all our guys are, both magical and like great parkour people, so there's no fall damage. They can fall really well, and they have a lot of control and cool stuff they can do while they're falling. But you're falling, you're going
Yeah,
down.
and you got battle suits on too, so they got padding and everything. They're gonna be fine.
Exactly. So your deck is your grip, and you need to maintain your deck. Part of the challenge is every round you are going to be drawing cards from your deck, and that's going to be depleting your grip. You have the ability to both rest and restore health, and rest and restore your grip for some action points. Action points are what you do on your game. The cards, you may be surprised to hear I like it because of this. The cards are multi-use cards. Each card either has an action on it or a certain amount of action points that it can be used for. Each round, you must pick one of your hand of 3 cards and use it for its action points, and thus sacrificing the ability you get off of it. This can be an agonizing decision because some of the better cards give you more action points, and action points let you do things like run around and break stuff on the board and pick up mushrooms and then do other stuff or heal. So you want action points, but sometimes you really want those cards. There have been many times I've been like, can I just not spend any of my cards? I'll take no action points. I want to keep all my cards. But no, you cannot. You must spend one of those. You can hold on to your cards and not spend them if you want to keep grip, but you must spend one every round to gain your action points.
Exactly one
You
card?
It is exactly one card every round, yes.
Okay.
You can spend your other cards as free actions to do whatever their thingy is, whether it's run a gadget or cast a spell or launch a rocket or do a cool sword attack or focus up, whatever it is that the card says. And there's all sorts of things the cards say. There are generic actions that you can do by climbing. So you can climb and you can jump. You can strike the crystals. You can heal. You can rest. So there are generic actions you have. There's actions on your cards. And then there's the mushroom actions. You are just trying to run all those things through, repeating the cycle until you can break all of those crystals.
Hmm.
The guy, the Leviathan, gets more and more dangerous over time. Every time he runs through those 6 cards, his rage track is going to increase. All of his cards have an
Oh.
angry side and a not so angry side. The angry side are much worse and much deadlier. So as he runs through those rage cards, he'll enrage more of them, and more of those cards, those 6 repeating ones, will be on their much deadlier angry side. You want to try to finish the game before he gets too enraged. Otherwise, you're going to be having a bad time.
Are you able to calm him down anyway? Is there any way to like flip those cards back or
There
anything?
is no way to calm him down
Hmm.
some. There is no way to reduce his rage. He is getting angrier and angrier, and it is up to you to break his crystals before you die.
And it's probably not his fault. It's the crystals are making him angry. So
Sure,
be
which is why
understanding,
none of them
people.
have ever attacked you after you break the crystals.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's that.
One, I didn't mention it at all, but I just want to mention it because it's a cool card, and every time it comes up, I'm like, oh, I want more of these to come out. There are injury cards, so various different effects of the Leviathans can injure you, and injuries are sort of a lasting bad effect that can be on your guy. So like he can only rest when he's out of cards, or harmful terrain harms him twice, or I don't know. There's a whole bunch of them. And these injuries just sort of give you an extra challenge that you have to deal with. I like those. They're fun. The extra challenge is fun. Just
Mhm.
to have to work it into how it is that you're playing. I don't like them in that they're really annoying and they make it much harder, but it's a very enjoyable challenge.
Well, that's neat. Okay. That sounds fun. Yeah, it's a nice unexpected thing you get to deal with.
That really summarizes the bulk of the gameplay. The gameplay really is not very difficult. I didn't mention that the rules are very good. They explained it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a couple questions that I had that I asked the FAQ and made it through. But for the most part, the rules really explain really well what's going on. The rules are very good, are very simple. It is easy to play through it. Um, I wish more cooperative games sort of had a rule of, do what's worse or do what's fun or something like that, just so I can feel justified in it. But usually I
Yep.
try not to look up too much of the rules when I'm playing through a co-op game until afterwards. Um,
Yep.
this is one that benefits from having that kind of rule, but it's a really fun challenge to do that. The rules do not get in the way of it. And there's a lot of decision points that you have as you're running through these things. I will very often sit there with my hand of cards and figure out, well, I've got 5. If I do this, I can manage to get over there and I can break a crystal right now. And I'm making sure to get out of the way. But is that really efficient? I say to myself, to tell friends, should I use these cards on friends? Should I say to myself, do I want to save cards so I'm not falling so soon? I see that I have 3 cards in my deck, so if I spend all 3 of mine, I'm going to draw 3 back up. I'm going to immediately fall. Do I want to fall? And there's a whole bunch of decision points that goes into it. And people who've been listening long enough know that when I feel smart about my decisions, when I'm involved and invested in those decisions, I enjoy it a lot. This is a
Yep.
game that makes that happen. There's a lot of decisions about how you're going to use those AP, how you make those decisions about those AP, how much AP is that you want. And tying into that is the dynamic nature of those Leviathans. Each time you pull up on the Leviathan, it feels like a different type of boss from a video game. It feels like video game bosses. That's really what it is. Where there's this guy
And
and
it
you
looks
see
like
like, and it looks like it. There's like a flashing spot. He's gonna hit here. Get out of the way.
it.
Learn his moves. Figure out the best way of dealing with those moves. Predict it and work in the system to be able to achieve well.
Yeah,
So
the way the threat card comes up before you take your actions, that's
yeah,
what gives it that feel, isn't it? Yeah, you say, "Oh yeah, look, it's gonna do this. I could see it starting to move this way. That means I got to jump that way or whatever." That does give it a nice. I imagine it does.
there are even some of the threat cards that trigger immediately when you reveal them,
Oh, well, of course.
but you have all these anytime actions to be able to deal with those. So many of your cards are anytime. You can just let go anytime. You can spend your mushrooms and do stuff. Other players can help you out. So throwing those in there, increases it, makes that challenge more fun, makes things feel different. So yeah, that all of that feels really smart, really, really intelligent. Great gameplay as you're running through those. The game can
Hmm.
get really challenging. Some of the later guys are really more complicated, really difficult to be able to run through. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, I'm not sure I can handle some of the more difficulty increasing mutations. Like, hey, look, this guy was throwing me around the board. I mentioned before about the guy who keeps changing gravity. So I'm like, I need to go over there. Whoa, I'm all the way over here now. Never mind. Wait,
That's
what
funny.
am I doing now? Never mind. So he was messing with me. So a lot of that just it's very intelligent, very well played. I'm greatly enjoying it. It's a strong recommendation from me. There's a lot to enjoy about the gameplay of it. There's a lot to enjoy about the replayability of it between the different
Hmm.
characters and between the different Leviathans. I will note they claimed that there was 255 different combinations of climbers and classes, and each one is unique. And I will say, in my personal opinion, playing the gambler with this guy versus this guy does not change the gambler in itself enough to me. There may be sometimes like,
Hmm.
oh, I want to play like the mushroom eater with the focus dude because there's a specific combo with that one. But so much of the other cards just sort of operate independently and so much of their abilities operate independently that it doesn't feel like I'm playing a totally different version of the class or the climber
Right.
by mixing and matching it.
Now,
So
I imagine it's possible that that may change with some of the Leviathans potentially,
it
but
could,
yeah.
but
Either way,
to
technically there's 250 combinations, but yeah, realistically it doesn't matter. It sounds like it doesn't matter that much.
yeah, it doesn't matter to me. It's just there's 8 different climbers and 11 different classes, and mixing and matching those two isn't necessarily going to change that much for me personally. But that's okay. That's 8 different players.
Yeah, and it's
That's
still
fine.
fun. Yeah.
Yes.
So I do have a couple questions. I made you skip the rules section, so you tried to go back to it, but you didn't stay there long. I want to say the rule book, having just looked at it, it looked very simple to read, simple to follow, very clean. It's 16 pages, but they're not dense at all. It's not like a 16 difficult pages, and that includes the cover that's just a picture. Um, so I think it's a really good rule book to learn from. Some rule books I look at them and I'm overwhelmed. That's not the case here at all. The So that being said, as simple as it seems to be, what's the age range for this game? Seems like it's pretty wide.
I have no idea anymore. I'm
Okay, let's.
that the age range for a game is so hard for me to determine anymore. I play with kids who play board games. I play with
What?
kids who have
Yeah, no,
no
that's true.
understanding of
Yes,
board games.
there's. Yeah, my son grew up playing board games, so they're games that were like rated much older than he was. But he'd already learned that the language of games, so to speak.
Yeah. If
But
you're
it
asking
is
how
rated
complicated it
for.
is, if you're asking
No, I
like
want to
a
know what the
weight
rating is
class or
for.
complexity,
10
the
plus, according to the publishers. 10 plus.
sure, but I
Yes,
think
and
that's more of a
it
legal thing
I know it
usually.
depends based on that, but that's a guideline.
But in terms of
Okay.
complexity, there's more complex characters and there's less complex characters. And each one of them is very clearly shown. There's gears on each of the classes, the characters, and Leviathans that shows the level of complexity. So if you're playing with younger kids, pick some of the less complex climbers, pick the big turtle Leviathan, and go to town, and it'll be a lot less complex and it'll be easier to understand. If you're playing with super experienced people and you want a more complicated in-depth scenario, like this wind guy that keeps beating me up that I keep mentioning, and so pick him with like Mystic and Mushroom Man and the other more complex characters, and have fun. Go for
Mhm.
broke. Good luck.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. This game looks really neat. Who publishes it?
Moon
We mentioned
Crab Games,
Mooncrab Games. Okay,
who I will say sent me a
and
free sticker.
oh, nice. How much does the game go for? Do you know what the retail
It is
price is?
currently available on their new Game Found. I think they're running it for $59. I'm not sure. I'll have to take a look now.
Oh, that's not so
Ask any
bad.
questions.
That's not so bad at all. Let's see if I do shopping. I don't find it. So let's go to the game found.
Yeah, so their Game Found they're running for the original Founders
Wow.
Edition is 65. If you want the all in for new backers to get both the original and the new expansions coming out, it's 110. So
Okay.
judge from there to everywhere else.
That's neat. This sounds like a really cool game, Julius. I like how much it has. I am surprised how many Leviathans come with the game. You know, most games that have like scenarios like that will bring 4 or 5, maybe, right? Not much more than that. This is 17 different guys to play. And it sounds
And
like
I
each of
cannot
those is
emphasize
different.
how different those feel and how even more different they feel with the mutations.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty impressive. It really is. And with the
Yeah,
mutations, and then you said the hero mixes isn't as impactful, but still, the sounds like there's a lot of variety and a lot of replayability in this game.
certainly. And even if it's less, I think the character classes is lessened than perhaps you'll hear from the designers or other people. Even with that being lessened, still, I it's like with the loop. With the loop, the character classes lessened it because you're still running around the board playing with all the same similar type cards. But I still think even so, the decision points that you get to make on how it is that you approach how things are interacting, which cards you're getting, how it's affected by the Leviathan deck or the mutations, those things, those decision points continue to create interesting, appealing, involved decision points that keep you involved, keep you interested and engaged in the game, and make the game fun.
Mhm. Hey, we didn't actually talk about the solo game. So it is a multiplayer game that's cooperative. Solo, the rules say play two characters with a
Okay.
shared deck, right?
No,
But you could just play
no.
multi-handed solo, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, don't play solo like they say to do. They say set it up and put a single deck mixed between the two, and then you run around, and if you lose grip, both of your guys lose grip. I absolutely do not do that. don't do
Okay.
it. Play two-player multi-handed. Pick up a deck, put down a deck. Have your two multi. All of us are familiar with multi-handed. Play multi-handed. Having
Yeah.
your guys stuck with one grip, not being able to assist between the two, not being able to throw in the extra complexities of having the mixes of the different characters, not having that interaction, it is a much worse version of playing the game. Don't
Yeah, I
don't
think
do what they say for
Pandemic.
solo play.
Yeah, Pandemic has a similar rule in one of the expansions. Oh, now added solo, but yeah, I'd rather just play multi-handed.
Absolutely.
It works just fine.
Yeah. Don't
All right,
It's
Julius,
very rare that I
that
say
was a
just do
really
not
cool
listen to them,
game.
but do not listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, try it if you want. It's your game, but then go back to the other way. Okay, Julius. Monster stuff. I don't have any good monster endings, but yeah. Wow. Let's
Only
rampage
bears.
out of here. Yeah. How's that?
Alrighty, Albert. Have a great night.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thanks for listening. We love feedback, so we love hearing from you. You could reach me at julius@oneplayerpodcast.com or JLBird on BGG, and Albert can be reached at albert@oneplayerpodcast.com or Fractalune on BGG. Our website is oneplayerpodcast.com with the number 1, and we're also on Twitter at oneplayerpodcast. The intro music is copyright Angus and can be found at jamendo.com. The transition music is copyright by Dan Elduce Pancaldi, whose page is at donpancaldi.com. The One Player Podcast is protected under a Creative Commons share-alike license. Thanks for listening.